So here's a random topic for my first political video. What is a sheepdog? Well, many of you have probably heard this term being thrown around in the past, and you likely will again in the future. But what is it? What does it mean in the context of politics, especially the two-party system here in the U.S.? It's typically used as a pejorative, an insult. It's often levied against candidates who appear to challenge the orthodoxy of a party, but ultimately asks for their supporters to vote for the candidate the party ultimately endorses. It's the job of the sheepdog to herd the sheep, as it were. The sheep being the voters who have wandered away from the party and into so-called disarray. Why do voters stray from the party line? Why do they need to be herded? To be honest, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats appeal to the majority of Americans. They just don't, despite what they have to say. The biggest voting bloc in the country, according to Gallup, is now independents. They currently make up 43% of all registered voters. That's almost half of all registered voters. The Democrats take 29% and the Republicans take 26%. They each have about a quarter of the country. Now, in order to win a general election, each party tries to scoop up as many voters as possible from both the opposing party, but they need independents even more than that. Independents often have become disillusioned with the continuous failures of both the Democrats and Republicans. They've become disillusioned with the party's inability to keep any of the positive promises that they campaign on, and the fact that no matter who gets into office, the same old just sort of keeps on happening, regardless of what was said during the campaign. These independents, they need to be convinced to vote blue or red against their better judgment, which is where the sheepdog comes into play. The role of this type of candidate is to go around and gather up as many independents as possible by telling them just enough of the truth and offering them just enough actual policy solutions to problems that they have, that they then become convinced there's actually a chance of accomplishing something truly groundbreaking. The sheepdog's second job is to lose to the candidate pre-selected by the party. And that candidate was always the intended winner, but it has to appear to the voters that that isn't so. The sheepdog's third job is to use their newfound political capital to try and convince their supporters to fall in line behind the intended candidate, whoever that may be. This is why people like Bernie Sanders are accused of being a sheepdog on a regular basis.
I have known Hillary Clinton for 25 years. I remember her, as you do, as a great First Lady who broke precedent in terms of the role that a First Lady was supposed to play as she helped lead the fight for universal health care. I served with her in the United States Senate and know her as a fierce advocate for the rights of children, for women, and for the disabled. Hillary Clinton will make an outstanding president, and I am proud to stand with her tonight. Thank you all very much.
While candidates like Ralph Nader, who took his supporters into the Green Party instead of falling in line behind Al Gore and the Democrats in 2000, are accused of being a spoiler and splitting the vote. The irony of, more registered Democrats voting for George Bush than registered Democrats voting for the Green Party conflicts with that narrative, so you don't hear that in the media very often. It's almost never discussed. And the party definitely does not want that piece of information getting spread around too much, because it conflicts with the way that they convince people not to vote for a quote-unquote spoiler. I'll do another video about vote splitting at some point. What it means, how it can change the outcome of an election. These are all political strategies and the effects of candidates making choices within politics. All of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. So say we all. The idea of a sheepdog ignores the ability of voters to think for themselves, and it suggests that people will do whatever their chosen candidate instructs them to do. But it can also be an effective strategy against those who don't have a strong grasp of cyclical political strategizing, and people who don't pay close attention to the issues. The Democrats love to employ the strategy, even more so than the Republicans, but it's been used to great effect by both parties throughout history. Ultimately, the sheep who have been successfully herded back into the fold of the Republican or Democratic Party with promise of influence and reasonable policy are completely ignored once the election is won. They're useful for a time, and once the goal is achieved, they're no longer useful. Another feature of the sheepdog is to divert the energy and enthusiasm of activists a year and a half out from a November election. And that is a way to distract them or divert their energy from building an alternative to, say, the Democratic Party, and instead into the doomed effort of the sheepdog. When the sheepdog inevitably folds up their campaign in the spring or the summer before the November election, there's no time remaining to win ballot access for alternative parties or candidates, no time to raise money or organize any effective challenge to the two corporatist parties. When the sheepdog closes up shop, the alternatives have been nipped in the bud, and the party pivots to the familiar, quote-unquote, lesser of two evils narrative. It's the same old game every time. Chris Christie played a similar role for Donald Trump in the 2016 Republican primaries, but his duties were a little different. They extended to also being an attack dog. He not only herded voters into Trump's camp, but also spent his political capital ripping Trump's opponents to shreds, making it less likely that those opponents would have a successful challenge to Donald Trump. This is a variation on the strategy to keep watch for in the future. All of these things have been done many, many times in the past, and once you start to learn about them, once you start to recognize them, you'll see them happening again and again and again. Why is this all important? Well, if we're ever to truly change the political dynamic in our country away from the two-headed coin that is the Republicans and Democrats, we have to understand how the parties and their friends in the media maneuver voters around like puppets on strings. We need to learn their strategies, recognize when they're being used against us, and respond in a sophisticated and coordinated manner. We need to be able to beat them at their own game. In the immortal words of Denzel Washington,
You can't open your eyes, can't you see? Son, this is the game. I'm playing his ass. That's my job. That's your job. The shit's chess, it ain't checkers.
If you enjoyed this production by The State of Opportunity, please like and subscribe. Remember, you're the ones who make this all possible. You can also check out our Facebook page at Opportunity State and follow us on Twitter at @OfByOpportunity. If you feel like chipping in a couple bucks, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/stateofopportunity. Have a great day, and remember to always keep an open mind.